probably come into effect at that time, where they can refuse more prisoners on the basis of them being a threat to national security. My only hope is that enough Canadians know Marc is definitely not a threat. I mean, for all we know, some of these cocaine dealers who are down there may be dangerous, and they may still be trying to run their gangs or do their thing. But Marc certainly isn't, and he should be able to come back home immediately after he starts his sentence down there. So that will be the main push of our campaign. Right now, the man who will decide that is Peter Van Loan. He's the Public Safety Minister, which is a newly created job, the safety. You'll hear a lot about safety from the government.
It's a political threat.
Yeah, exactly. But let me remind you something interesting is that safety is the opposite of freedom. And most people think they go together, but safe means secure, which means restricted, contained, protected, borders, and free means none of those things. You know, it means the ability to not be contained, restricted. So in this new age where we're moving towards this safety, everything's about safety, you know, that's at the expense of our freedom. So as I warned you, a lot of bad things from the Conservatives, and Marc is here just for probably a short while. That will be the worst part, is just waiting for our lawyer to give us a call saying, well, he signed the paper, go turn yourself in by 4 p.m. on whatever date soon after. So that will be very difficult to cope with. Because I was kind of getting into the groove of having him gone. You know, I could get through each day just with work, but it'll be tough. But it's worth it. I wouldn't trade everything for the world. And he's coming back. And maybe it won't be 4 years from now. 4 years would be good behavior. But like I said, with enough pressure, we can have him brought back home sometime sooner, maybe 6 months to a year. And we need to bring him back because we've got to save Canada. Now, Canada is getting darker. The United States is getting somewhat more attractive, but then I have to remind myself that the United States is one of the most oppressive, brutal regimes in the world with what they do to people. So even for all the talk of legalization and that, yes, there is some positive change happening, America is still a lot worse than Canada. And Canada is still a lot more free than the United States, but it won't be that way for long because this government is doing things so fast that we're going to wake up in 2 or 3 years from now and say, what happened to our country? Why did an election right now? There should be an election soon, and when there is, I'll be a Green Party of Canada candidate running in Vancouver South against Jodie of the Liberal Party. And he has actually been gracious enough to take part in a petition submission to the Parliament, and Libby Davies of the NDP, Jodie of the Liberal Party, and Scott Reid of the Conservative Party have all agreed to submit 1/3 of our 11,000 plus petitions we have signed from people. So that should happen maybe in the next week or so. Again, I don't know how effective it'll be because this government doesn't really listen to the people, even though they say that that's the only way they govern. I'm not sure what they'll do, but you know, you have to keep trying because of no effort, there's no chance of success. So,
if you want to include when you're writing your member of parliament, especially if they're conservative, I would quote the Bible. And the reason being is that almost half of the conservative caucus are religious Christians. Many of them fundamentalists, including many cabinet ministers, Stockwell Day. The Prime Minister himself is alleged to be born again, according to a number of people in the religious business, in the Christian, and he's behaving in his speeches like that. And you have to understand that it's all about the lake of fire, the book of Revelation, punishing the sinners, because many of them are actually premillennialists that believe Christ is coming back in their lifetime. They claim all the righteous, take them back to the kingdom of heaven, the rest of us are going to perish.
We know George Bush and his friends, they all actually do believe in this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We know from the war in Iraq, they believe that they're on a holy crusade to bring about the Armageddon because they are the blessed ones and they're going to be saved. But in order for them to get into heaven with extra brownie points, they need to punish the sinners. And we, the drug users,
for
are
example,
sinners.
the new Bill C-15 puts a mandatory minimum of 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, but you can get out of it. And see, here's the thing, as I was saying, when I'm in jail, I'm in a cage, 8.5 by 10 cell, but they don't tell me what to think. Nobody makes me repent. I don't have to say what I did was wrong. I don't have to believe that marijuana is bad for it. I can believe whatever I want. They're just keeping me detained, but I can do whatever. But in Bill C-15, you can can avoid the mandatory minimum if the judge can order you into a drug court. And the drug courts are very specific. We have a video if you want to see what a real drug court is.
Well, CBC, the Fifth Estate did a documentary called Powerless, and it's about this drug treatment center for young people in Alberta. It's called AARC, Adolescent Abuse Recovery Center. It is a horrific place where these young people are signed in against their will. Some of them don't even have addiction or drug use history, but they're signed in and detained. They are not allowed to speak to family, to write letters, to use words longer than 3 syllables, to think, to read a cereal box. Any of that is banned. And first you have to give in and say, yes, I am a drug addict and I am powerless, and I need to accept the Lord to treat me. And this is what the Conservative government is offering as treatment.
Because if you repent and are thus redeemed, you can avoid the mandatory minimum appeal, but that's the only criteria in the law. And the thing is, the mandatory minimums apply to people who would never normally go to jail. Because, I mean, I went to jail for 3 months for passing 1 joint, so if you got the right reputation, you can go to jail for a long time for nothing in this country. But normally, a young person selling some pot or maybe selling some crystal meth or something like that isn't going to go to jail. Well, this is to make sure they all do go to jail, because the Conservatives are convinced you're not getting the message. So if you have to go to jail, you will really understand punishment. And the only way to avoid punishment is to repent, accept the Lord into your life, and then be redeemed. And the judge, if he sees you're redeemed, will let you go. But the thing is, that's very insidious, because you have to change who you are and what you think and all your beliefs in order to be redeemed, right?
So
and that's what the message of this government
treatment is maybe some forms of treatment are going to be worse than imprisonment, but there is good treatment, there's proper treatment. But what the Conservatives are introducing is not. It's all about control, because that's what the threat here is about marijuana. It's not like using marijuana makes you a terrorist or somehow it, why is marijuana illegal? It's because it makes you uncontrollable. You are free in your mind. You're going to question authority. You won't be told what to do unless it's something you want to do. And government only exists, as I've been fond of saying recently, the only reason government or laws exist are to force you to do something you don't want to do, or to prevent you from doing something you do want to do. When you think about all these laws and the way that they're trying to protect you or control you, that's what they're trying to do. And so the threat with marijuana is just like what happened to me. I'm their worst nightmare. I was a star student. I was going to go and lead the military off or whatever, right? Like that's what they expected of me. But when I started using pot, I said, no, that's not right. That's not true. And that's what the threat is about marijuana. And that's why it all started at Vietnam. And when the people using marijuana, the anti-war protesters, those were the biggest threat. It wasn't what was actually happening in the war. It was that back at home there were people waking up and saying, no more, stop it. And that's what they're afraid of now. And that's why they want to either force treat you or put you in jail or take your home or take your kids. There's a lot of threats out there. I mean, they make you owe, you're growing some plants. Well, you owe $1 million in back taxes. Pay up. And we're taking your house, by the way. Oh, and you'll never work again, and you can't leave the country, and your kids are going to social. So they're out to destroy lives.
Can't we counterattack and force booze and tobacco illegal?
Well, I think that's what we should say is
the
that.
secret is to overgrow the government, because the problem with our movement is money's involved. Too many of us are making too much fucking money. And that keeps people hidden, and it keeps people from getting political, and it distorts why they're even there, right? If we grew pot everywhere and it got to be so cheap that money wasn't a factor, pot would be legal a lot faster, because we wouldn't be afraid and we'd be hiding in a closet. But because so many people have good jobs, they're teachers, they're lawyers, they're parents, they've got all these things, and they can easily be jeopardized, and then there's money. The growers don't give money to political events, they don't even want it legal, most of them don't even vote.